Welcome to our Penn State Nittany Lions 2025 preview, Chris. Here we are. We are down to the Big Three, the old traditional Big Three in the Big Ten. We always finish off our preview every year, our previews with the team up north and Ohio State being the last two. But this year, we saved, I think, the best four for last. We had Oregon earlier this week. We have Penn State here at the end of this week. And Penn State is the media darling of 2025. They were ranked third in the coaches poll that just was released earlier this week behind Texas and Ohio State, but they were ranked number one by the Big Ten media to win the Big Ten this year. And if you listen to the narrative that is being preached out there by a lot in the media, Penn State is the 2023 version of the team up north and the 2024 version of Ohio State, meaning their roster is set up with mostly seniors and juniors who have come back to Happy Valley to win the big one. That is the narrative that is being pushed out there by the media. Before we dive into our predictions, which is how we end every preview video, let's start here first as Ohio State fans. Jim Knowles leaves Columbus, Ohio, heads back to his home state of Pennsylvania to coach the Nittany Lions defense. Do the Penn State fans realize he's not an overnight fix for your defense? By the way, did the defense even need fixing?
No, that was a pretty good defense they already had. This was, I think, more a shot fired at Ohio State than anything else. This wasn't about improving the defense. This was just a shot fired at Ohio State. And I think that the fact that their defense may improve is just, the icing on the top. But at the same time, like you said, Eric, this is not a quick fix. This is not what Knowles does. Knowles takes 3 years to develop a defense, and then after that third year, he bails. That's his MO.
It's what he's done everywhere. He did that at let's see, where was he at? Duke. He did it at Duke.
Oklahoma State.
He did it at Oklahoma State. He did it at Ohio State. Now, statistically, historically, every year it is much better than the previous year.
Yes.
So,
which is frightening 2 years from now.
100%.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I feel like this defense is still going to be a pretty good defense. Is it going to be great? I don't know if I can say that. The loss of a guy like Abdul Carter is huge. They got some.
The guy you argued with me all year long about being one of the better defensive ends. You remember that last preseason?
I do, and I didn't feel that he was going to make that move as successfully as he did. I was mistaken in that assessment, and I'm man enough to admit that. But I feel like it's going to be a good defense. Can't say it's going to be a great defense. So that's just where I'm at. And guys, Knowles cannot fix it overnight. Just know that.
Yeah. There's something else Knowles can't fix. It's James Franklin. I will get into that in just a second. But first, let's take a quick glance at what the Nittany Lions did last year, setting up what we're going to be looking at this year in 2025. So in 2024, they started off against rival West Virginia, who they beat 34-12. They took down Bowling Green by 7 at home, 34-27. They pummeled Kent State, which is the worst team in college football, 56-0. They beat Illinois in a close one, 21-7. They beat UCLA, 27-11. They beat USC in a close one out in the Coliseum, 33-30. They defeated Wisconsin in Madison, 28-13. And that set up the big disappointment at home against Ohio State. Ohio State was coming off licking their wounds off of a loss against Oregon. Ohio State goes out to Happy Valley and takes down the Nittany Lions 20-13. Washington was a 35-6 win. Purdue was a 49-10 win. Minnesota in a close one on the road, 26-25. They thumped Maryland. Everybody did. Everybody will again this year. They then go to the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis, where they lose to the new Oregon Ducks, the new Big Ten member Oregon Ducks, that is 37-45. Then they go to the playoffs, where in the first round of the FCS, they handled SMU at home 38-10. They then go to the second round where they take on Boise State in a bowl game that they won 31-14 before losing 27-24 in the semis, thus finishing the season at 13-3 overall, and they were in the regular season 11-1, 8-1 in the Big Ten. 10 games was the over-under that Vegas suggested. They got 11. I said 9-3, or excuse me, I said 8-4. Chris, you said 9-3. We both were wrong. They were much better than that. James Franklin now goes into year number, I don't know, what is this, 11, 12, something like that? He's been there a while. 101 wins to 42 losses. Of course, Beaver Stadium, one of the larger stadiums in the United States, with 106,457.2. I don't know what. That's obviously a mistake there.
0.2.
0.2. It's a partial midget. It's half of a midget. We just got disbanded right there. The all-time record: 943 wins, 412 losses, 42 ties. They have a bowl record now of 32-21-2. That is a really good bowl record, and 5 conference championships to their credit. James Franklin. Is there a coach in college football that has more pressure on him this year than James Franklin does?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I think the closest thing you might have would be another Big Ten coach in Lincoln Riley, because I think the pressure is going to start mounting at USC given their lack of success to this point.
I would say,
but
yeah,
the expectations that
I think he is second,
Franklin,
but I think he's a distant second from James Franklin.
Yeah, the expectations that Franklin has given this roster,
right?
The Penn State fans are not going to accept anything less than a national title.
I would say at least getting there.
I really feel like they have to win it. And
they need a championship of some kind. Yeah. If they don't win the national championship, if they can at least win the Big Ten championship and then have a really good showing in the college football playoff again, where they actually beat somebody of significance, then I think the fan base would be like, okay, that's better. But if they do none of that, let's say James Franklin doesn't win a Big Ten championship, he flops in the college football playoff when he actually has to play a real opponent.
Oh, he's out.
At that point, I think the fan base has to say, if it wasn't this year, then win.
Yeah. But you look at this, Eric, and playing devil's advocate here, he doesn't have a great record against top 5 teams, doesn't have a great record as far as his bowl wins go.
He's about every other year, isn't he? He wins. He's like 500 in bowls, I feel like.
Yeah, he's.
But he's beat a bunch of like.
He's actually he's right at 500 in his bowl games.
Yeah, I thought
at
so.
Penn State. Now he's over 500 if you count his 3 years at Vandy. But here's the thing: he has a knack for falling on his face against the big opponents. Now,
yeah, when the spotlight's on him the brightest is when he has his biggest blunders.
That being said, it wasn't a year ago we were having this same discussion about another coach.
That is truth, and of course you're talking about
Ryan Day. So you look at a guy like Ryan Day, you look at a guy like even going back early on Nick Saban. These are guys who, now obviously Saban became the greatest coach of all time, but Ryan Day overcame those demons last year. Last year, we were ready to run him out of Columbus at one point. So Franklin has a blueprint for it. He's following the Ryan Day blueprint. However, if he falls short against Ohio State in the regular season, if he falls short against Oregon, if he doesn't make that Big Ten championship game or doesn't win the championship, I think he's out, Eric. I mean, I really do.
Mm,
Although you say that, and it's awful hard to push out a guy that wins 70% of his games.
yeah, which is the same argument that a lot of Ohio State fans were given, other Ohio State fans when they were tired of what Ryan Day was not achieving in Columbus, Ohio. All right, let's go to our great interview. Andrew from the Nittany Blues Podcast, our sister podcast of the College Huddle. He joins me for a great interview. I ask him a lot of these same questions, and so we're going to get a Penn State fans perspective here as well. He's going to break down this team for all of you. You're going to love this interview. Andrew is one of the best, and their podcast is fantastic. So you're gonna love this interview, everybody. And then Chris and I will be right back after that interview. We'll give you our prediction to wrap up. And we are back here on the OHIO podcast with my friend Andrew from the Nittany Blues, our sister podcast over at the College Huddle. Andrew, welcome back to the OHIO podcast, my friend.
Thanks so much, Eric. Always a pleasure. Love the new backdrop and pumped to talk some football with you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. We are excited. It's 2025 finally. Their fall camp is underway. Teams are practicing. Ohio State just had a big injury on day number 1. And it's it's officially here, man. Everybody's freaking out,
Of course. Yeah.
That's how it goes. That's par for the course. But yeah, man, I think that you and your fan base obviously have a lot to be excited about in 2025. And let's start right there. So, going back a couple years after the SEC dominated the college football playoff for what seemed like the better part of 2 decades, Michigan won the national championship in 2023 by basically bringing everybody back and having a monster senior class. Ohio State did the same thing in 2024. And now the narrative is that is where Penn State is at in 2025, that they were able to retain a majority of their roster. A lot of guys who would have went off to the NFL decided to opt back in and come back to Penn State. Is that indeed that narrative that's being pushed out there? Is that true, number one? And number two, I'm assuming if it is, NIL had a big part to do with that, just like it did for Ohio State last year.
Yeah, great question. I would say internally, there's definitely a lot of optimism and a lot of excitement with a couple of caveats in there. It's not lost on the team and the fan base that they're going to have to replace guys like Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. I would say, generally speaking, there's probably a couple questions that need to be answered along the defensive line. That being said, across a lot of other key positions, definitely retaining the talent, like you said. A lot of guys who could have gone pro if they wanted to, and so there's a lot of excitement, and obviously the offseason moves with bringing in Jim Knowles and everything. It's leading up to what is kind of like a high expectation season for Penn State.
Yeah, let's go right there. You went to it. That's the one, I guess you could say, commonality between Ohio State and Penn State is the fact that Jim Knowles, after spending 3 years as defensive coordinator at Ohio State and leading that defensive unit to the number one defensive unit in all of college football, he decides he's going to go back home to the state of Pennsylvania. He's a Pennsylvania guy, Philly guy. And James Franklin was able to open up the purse a little bit more for him, bring him in offered him a little bit more than what Ohio State was willing to offer him. And so he becomes a defensive coordinator now for Penn State. It seems like the fan base is super stoked about this move. Kind of give me the I guess you could say the pulse of the fan base about Jim Knowles being the defensive coordinator and why there's so much confidence around him, particularly calling the defense in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the main reason for the optimism is because Ohio State's defense became such a buzzsaw during that postseason run. And I know there's a lot of discourse around like who was responsible for what as far as the, if you want to call it a turnaround, but kind of that jump to the next level for the Ohio State defense last season. But bringing on this guy who just crafted such a suffocating defense, was able to create so much pressure. And I know a lot of that was because of the front four that they had, but still, you have a guy who was at the helm of such a dominating defense. And, Penn State was a little shocked to lose Tom Allen after last season. And so being able to make this kind of move kind of gave, at least for me, and I don't know if a lot of people would agree with me, but it kind of just signified to me like this is the type of move that a team that's serious about contending will try to make.
Is there any concern on your part and or the fan base's part that Jim Knowles, who traditionally is at a place for 3 years, did it at Duke, did it at Oklahoma State, did it at Ohio State, that the first year's results aren't the best, and he builds off every year, and by year number 3, he's implemented that scheme, he's got his players in place, and that's usually when they make hay on his defense. Is there any concern that in year number 1 he's not going to be able to deliver as promised?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And to be honest, that hasn't been a big part of the discourse as far as I've seen. I think that's an interesting angle to kind of look at this from what I've heard, just kind of out of their side. And of course, they're going to puff things up because this is prime like off-season PR mode time. But they've said, the scheme is coming along great. Like, guys are really acclimating to it. So the optimism is there as far as the team is concerned. But, from a fan perspective, schematically and production wise, I would kind of defer to you. So we at least kind of know that if things don't come out of the gates with all systems go, then maybe there is something to that. That being said, I think there's a decent amount of like returning and senior talent in this defense that can maybe kind of grasp onto those new concepts a little easier than say like maybe some new guys who I don't want to say would get rattled by a position coach change, but there's a lot of leadership on this team, and so I'm hopeful that that'll help kind of ease the transition a little bit, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. Let's stay with the coaching staff. Let's go to the head man himself, James Franklin. And I can't remember if it was you or your co-host I spoke to last year at this time of year. I think it was you, and we talked a little bit about how the fan base has kind of gotten almost just kind of numb from James Franklin being good but not being able to go over the hump. You get to the college football playoff. First off, you get to the Big Ten championship game. Then you get to the college football playoff. You win a couple games there, and then you lose to Notre Dame and what felt like a very James Franklin-like game. That being said, James Franklin has been at Penn State since 2014. It's like I think what is that, the third longest tenured coach in the Big Ten, maybe second after Kirk Ferentz, who's been there since leather helmets at Iowa. But he's been there a long time. And in that time period, last year felt like it was a major step forward for him in Penn State. 101 wins and 42 losses there at Penn State, 64-33 overall in the conference. And it feels like everything he's ever wanted is there this year. Is this a natty or bust, put up or shut up, crap or get off the pot year for James Franklin from the perspective, again, of this fan base, who at times appears to be very irritated by the fact he hasn't won the big one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think James Franklin has done a pretty good job as coach of Penn State. But the thing that still remains on his resume, and this is a monkey that only he can get off his back, is winning the big games. Beating the marquee opponents both in the regular season as well as the postseason and stuff like that. So he can win as many 10 game or have as many 10 win seasons as he wants. If he continues to lose to, Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame and so on, then that's going to be the thing that people keep keying in on. I would say that the sentiment is more in the area of natty or bust than it's ever been. I wouldn't say that it's like a definitive like thing in that. What I mean is like, there are other achievements that I think the team can get to that will make the season appear to be, or, make them feel like it was a success, even if they do come up short of winning a national championship. But the needle is definitely pointing more in that direction than it ever has been, in my opinion.
What would those things be?
Beating the big time opponents being one thing. Beating Ohio State in the shoe would go a long way with the fan base, because everybody who loves to criticize Franklin always points back to like the previous coaches and like their abilities to win occasionally against the big time opponents, or put good performances in that respect. So that would go a long way. Obviously, if they're able to go undefeated this season, that would be a big thing. And just kind of making another playoff run. I don't necessarily wouldn't say definitively the semifinals, but if they're able to get back to that point again and kind of just put themselves consistently in a position to compete for that title, then I think that's going to go a long way.
Well, obviously you can talk about James, you can talk about James and Jim, JJ. Just came to me, man. You got the J coaches. What's the offensive coordinator's name? I forget what's his name.
Andy Kotelnicki. So you
Okay,
got J and
yeah,
K.
yeah. And he was almost poached by West Virginia, if I remember correctly. They were really looking at him as their head coaching position. Um,
Yep.
so looking at the offensive side of the ball a little bit before we dive into the roster and we start to break that down a little bit. Offensively, defense has never been the issue at Penn State. They are as good as that gets in the Big Ten when it comes to defense. The issue has been a consistent offense. And what do you like? What did you like about what you saw last year? And what is I guess you could say, the going narrative moving forward with him as OC? And what is this, year number 3 as offensive coordinator?
This will be 2.
2? Okay, so
Mhm.
year number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest things that he brought to the table was just sheer creativity, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
saw some stuff out of his offense that you really don't see anywhere else in college football. I mean, you have offensive linemen in motion, for example, and you just saw some like fun stuff. Obviously, they were able to use Tyler Warren in a variety of different ways. So I would say the main thing that fans are going to be looking for is just that continued creativity, using guys in ways that maybe other teams wouldn't expect, or is kind of outside the norm. What I think fans are really eager to see is what his offense is going to look like with a revamped wide receiver unit, because like pretty much across the board, all the starting wide receivers are going to be new this season. So knowing now that like, okay, this isn't just going to be like the Tyler Warren offense with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen running the ball. Now, hopefully, we're going to have a fully balanced offense with playmakers and reliable productivity across the board. What is this offense now going to look like? That's going to be the biggest thing for me. So I don't think that you're going to see too much, of the like maybe the same design as last year, because you saw like a lot of like 2 quarterback sets. You saw a lot of like like obviously the tight end playing quarterback and stuff like that. I don't think you'll see a ton of things repeated from last year, except for maybe a little bit of tight end creativity. But I think the underlying thing of the creativity is what we're going to be looking for the most.
Let's start with the offense first, since we're there. Let's talk Drew Aller. Drew Aller is going into his senior season, year number 3 as starter at Penn State. The Northeast Ohio kid has obviously continued to improve and grow, and he is considered a possible Heisman candidate this year there in Happy Valley. What is the expectation being placed on Drew Aller?
Yeah, I mean, fans, just not to be too blunt, but they're kind of waiting for him to live up to his full potential. He's obviously had some good moments at times. His QBR, just throughout most of the season was really solid. What I think fans kind of take away from it, though, is that he doesn't necessarily elevate his game against the biggest opponents. And, so while he played okay against Ohio State and against like Oregon and Notre Dame, obviously there were moments of just kind of like down quality plays, if you will. Obviously, capitalized by the late game interceptions against Oregon and against Notre Dame. Those are really kind of weighing heavy in fans' minds. Obviously, kind of just like the late game decision making is something that fans are going to be looking for an improvement for. And then also just like normal quarterbacking stuff. I think generally fans are like, okay, he's got to get better at like reading defenses, setting protections, and stuff like that. Like it's obviously the guy has enough arm strength and talent to become a top tier quarterback, an elite quarterback. It's just kind of waiting for it all to coalesce together. And, so I'd say there's some optimism, just because there's another year into the system, second year with Andy Kotelnicki, another year with quarterback coach Danny O'Brien, new wide receivers, and, just that continued development that it can all kind of get to that point.
All right, running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are back. Last year, Ohio State had two of the better running backs in the country, the tandem of Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. Is Singleton and Allen the best tandem, best duo running back in backfield in college football? Just say yes.
Yeah, I don't know where else you'd look, to be honest.
Right. Those two. I mean, my gosh, they're going to leave there with some pretty big numbers for the both of them. And I think, that's why I think everybody knows they're going to get theirs, right? Like those guys are going to be good. I think that's another reason why the pressure it kind of lies on Drew Aller in this passing game a little bit, because everybody's going to be keying in on that running game.
Yep, absolutely.
Replacing at tight end, who's going to be the starter this year? I mean, you guys are losing one of the best tight ends in all of college football.
Yeah, so the week 1 starter is likely going to be Khalil Dinkins. Behind him, there's a couple of really talented young guys, headlined by Luke Reynolds, who I wouldn't be totally surprised if he overtakes Khalil for that starting spot as the season progresses. But you've also got Andrew Rappelier, who's going to be coming off injury, but he showed some good stuff at the beginning of last season, as well as Joey Schlaffer and a couple of others. So still going to be a very deep room, and definitely some reliable hands.
Now, the one thing you guys are trying to rebuild, and it needs to be rebuilt because it's been a huge weakness of this offense, is the wide receiver room. Who did you guys bring in, and what are we looking at for possible opening day starters there?
Yeah, so big talking point after the season was over was the transferring out of a lot of wide receivers for Penn State. They lost their starting guys like Amari Evans, Trey Wallace, and some others. And so they basically kind of like got a whole new hand, if you will. They brought in Trevor Pena from Syracuse. He was a highly sought after transfer portal guy, as well as Devontae Ross from Troy and Kyron Hudson from USC, who's pretty famous for barely dropping any balls that are thrown his way. So there's a bit of optimism just to kind of say, okay, like we've got a fresh start here with our wide receiver unit, and now it's all on the staff to kind of put it together. There's some skepticism, like as far as Marcus Hagen's ability to continue to develop and put together, I would say an above average wide receiver unit in college football. A lot of people were kind of saying, okay, like they're going to move on from him after last season, after especially, the receivers didn't put up a single catch during the final game against Notre Dame. But interestingly enough, Franklin stuck with Hagen's. All the receivers transferred out. And so now, they've kind of made their bet where they did. And so as far as day one starters, I would say those three guys are probably your likely dudes, and Pena, Ross, and Hudson. But there's a couple of other names in there, like Tyzier Denmark, who could see some time at Z, Lyric Samuel and Peter Gonzalez, who are bigger-ish receivers that you could see out there as well. And they still have Caden Saunders floating out there, who's more of a smaller, shiftier guy. And, blast from the past, Liam Clifford, little brother of Sean Clifford, who's more of like a high efficiency guy. So not really sure exactly like what we're going to see, but definitely a high dose of those first three is my guess.
I'm a big trenches guy. I feel like most games are won or lost in the trenches. Let's start with the offensive line first here. Go across the offensive line. Tell me who you think the starters are going to be.
Yeah, well, thankfully, I mean, this is like the easiest question to answer so far because they're returning 4 of the 5 guys. Everybody's healthy, so going left to right, looking at Drew Shelton at tackle, Venga Ioane at guard, Nick Dawkins at center. At right guard, this is going to be the new face, Cooper Cousins, but highly touted recruit, 5-star guy, already got some play, doing some really great things in the limited snaps that he got. And then at right tackle is actually going to be kind of the biggest competition between Nolan Rucci and Anthony Donka. They started the year with Anthony Donka. He was battling through injuries throughout most of the season. Rucci got kind of ramped up as to the back half of the season, especially into the playoff run, performed very well. So I think they're going to be kind of rotating those guys back and forth. But yeah, those are the guys.
All right, flipping over to the defensive side, let's look in the trenches on the defensive side. Penn State obviously replacing the one of the best players in college football on the defensive line, but usually you've got one to plug right in. That's the way Penn State kind of does things over there on the defensive line.
Definitely, yeah. So, obviously the guy who is going to be kind of like the next Abdul Carter, if you will, is Denai Dennis Sutton, who was a great player last year in his own right. Had some really great flashes. I mean, just a little overshadowed by Abdul because Abdul was Abdul, but he's a great player. He's going to be a stalwart at edge. And then on the other side, I would say the most likely name to start is going to be senior Zariah Fisher. Penn State's had a little bit of injury turnover at edge, so they're going to be looking for some answers there. There's some other names in there, like Enai White, transfer from Texas A&M, who Penn State really wanted out of high school. So be interesting to see if he gets any run. But then at the tackles, Zane Durant, he was like the big coup to get back on the defensive line going into this next season. Like Penn State had a lot of depth and talent and experience at defensive tackle last year, which was a huge benefit to them. They lost a couple of those guys, so them getting Zane back was huge for them. And then alongside him, I'm looking at Alonzo Ford, who was a transfer, I believe, from Old Dominion a couple years ago, but he has been battling some injuries ever since he got to Happy Valley, and signs point to him finally being healthy. So that's, that should be the four, I think.
In Jim Knowles' 4-2-5 defense, there's a lot of pressure that gets placed on those linebackers. They cannot miss. They need to know where the ball is going, and they need to be there. It is so crucial because depending on how aggressive he gets with those safeties, which Jim Knowles always says it's a safety-driven defense. Those linebackers need to make sure that they clean up a lot, especially in the running game. Who are going to be the linebackers this year? Who are going to be the benefactors, if you will, of the Jim Knowles 4-2-5 defense?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest name I would put here is Tony Rojas. He got his first year of starting action last year, and now he's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. Another guy with a lot of recruiting pedigree coming out of Virginia, I believe, but he's going to be looked at as kind of like the next linebacker U type guy. Had some really great highlight moments in that game against SMU with his pick six and stuff like that. So good linebacker, good ball skill. So I think he's really primed to shine this year, especially because you don't have a guy like Abdul Carter who's just prowling around the defense, kind of stealing the tackles, if you will. But alongside him, I'm not entirely sure who to put here, so I have two names here: in Amari Campbell, the transfer from UNC, as well as Dom DeLuca. Amari is a guy who was highly sought after in the transfer portal, similar to Trebor Pena. Brings a lot of experience and potentially leadership to this team, which I think could be pretty beneficial because they were trying to fill the gap that was left by Tamir Robinson transferring from the program to USC. And Dom DeLuca, he's kind of of that same mold. He's a team guy, he's a team captain. The team loves him. And even though he's not physically super imposing, he does a lot of good things. It's rare that he's like kind of out of position. So I'd kind of say he even checks a couple of those boxes that you were just saying of like, you got to be smart, you got to, make your assignments and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say like Tony Rojas, right in Sharpie, and then like those two guys, you can probably put like an or next to their name in the depth chart, at least like, probably for the first couple weeks of the season.
All right, and the secondary is obviously the most important part of Jim Knowles' defense. And again, he plays a ton of man-to-man, one-on-one coverage on the outside. So let's take a look at those cornerbacks first.
Yeah, definitely. So cornerback one, no question, is going to be AJ Harris, former transfer from Georgia. He was a huge part of Penn State's defense last year. On the other side, we're probably looking at Elliott Washington. He's another guy who's gotten a lot of love during this offseason and during spring ball. So look to him to be cornerback two. And then at safeties, you're looking at Zachy Wheatley, who's, I believe, a redshirt senior at this point, but he's going to be kind of looked at it as the leader of not just like the safety room, but probably also just defensive backs in general. He has the most experience in the group. He really started to put things together as like a complete safety at the end of last season and in the postseason. So fans are going to be relying on him, or the team's going to be relying on him a lot. And then probably looking at DeJuan Lane, probably at I would probably say like strong safety. He's a guy, I believe he's a redshirt freshman, maybe a redshirt sophomore now going into the season, who showed some really good stuff. I mean, Penn State was rotating their safeties a lot last season after KJ Winston went down with injury. So Lane was kind of like a beneficiary of that, if you will, just because he was getting some playing time, even during like, meaningful snaps. So he's probably going to be plugged in there. And then kind of like a variable position, like looking at like safety, nickel, etc. King Mack, who spent a season at Alabama, originally came to Penn State, then went to Bama, now is back at Penn State. He's probably going to be that final piece in that five. And then you're probably also going to see a little bit of Zion Tracy rotating in at nickel as well, just depending on the look.
Yeah, that's another, just like linebacker, that's a huge position in Jim Knowles' defense, is that nickel corner. They are expected to do a lot. They have to cover. They have to have a huge role in the running defense. So that'll be a great opportunity for someone to really make hay and really boost their draft status right there. All right, it is time to dive into the 2025 schedule for Penn State. We're going to create a floor and ceiling, if you will, to find out what do we think they are going to do here from Andrew, who is the expert on Penn State over at the College Huddle here. So you start off on Saturday, August 30th, a 3:30 kick against Nevada. That's going to be a win. Saturday, September 6th, you get FIU on the Big Ten Network, a noon kick. That's going to be a win. September 13th, you get Villanova coming to Beaver Stadium. That's a 3:30 kick on FS1. That also is going to be a win. What's your thoughts on this? Just this massively difficult non-con schedule there.
It looks like 2025 football if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I think Kurt Signetti thinks that might be a little bit too difficult, though.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of, I would say, atypical of like some of these top programs, the ones who are like serious about contending. We see this trend about like kind of going away from super tough non-con. So, just kind of taking it for what it is.
Yeah, I think very, very soon, if the Big Ten and SEC can get on the same page, we're going to see a SEC opponent on every Big Ten team schedule just about every single year. I think that's probably what we're going to see in the non-con moving forward. That is if they can get them agree to play 9 conference games. Otherwise, I think the Big Ten said, yeah, we'll just continue to play cupcakes and set up for CFP runs. You get your first bye on September 20th, and then the big one, the whiteout on September 27th. I just got done yesterday interviewing an Oregon reporter who is super nervous about this game. Obviously, Penn State can look at it as a revenge game, having lost to Oregon in Indianapolis. Oregon has to come all the way across country. They have to come into what is no doubt going to be the loudest, most hostile environment they've probably ever played in as a program, and that includes when they came to the Horseshoe. Of course, Fox made that a big noon kickoff, obviously. So this is and by the way, can I just say for a second, Penn State and Ohio State should always play on the last Saturday in the month of October, and it should always be a night game. That was the tradition of these programs. We need to get that back, Big Ten. Anyways, I digress. Huge game here, dude. What's your thoughts on the Ducks coming to Beaver Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be like, in my opinion, the marquee game. I forget what the other big game is on the schedule for that week for college football, but I mean, this is going to be the showstopper in my opinion. Night game, whiteout. Can't really ask for much more as a fan, as like a viewer on TV, and stuff like that. So, I mean, going into this, I know that Oregon lost some talent, but they're Oregon. They're still going to reload. And so I expect this to be another really great team. And coming into this, I mean, I would say it's coin flippy. I would say that the needle for me, and granted, I mean, you call me biased, but I think the needle is pointing a little bit more in Penn State's favor than Oregon's here for some of the reasons that you mentioned. Cross country road trip. They're going to be playing in an environment in a stadium that I'm not even sure any one of these guys has ever played in. So new situation, new just atmosphere that they're going to be experiencing for the first time. And that's really where Penn State has been able to create their magic, right? Like with the night game whiteouts. And I know that there's like the recent history of them, coming up short against Ohio State in those same environments, but they're always great games. They're always close, and they're always putting themselves in a position to win. So I still expect Oregon to be very good, but I'll maybe say like 51 to 55 versus 45 to 49 in favor of Penn State, as far as like percentages to win right now.
Yeah. How dare you forget Ohio State plays Washington that day? Come on. What
My
other
apologies.
marquee game? Well, I'll say this. Speaking of Washington, Oregon has played in some pretty loud environments.
Absolutely. Yep.
Husky Stadium can get super loud. Autzen Stadium, their home stadium, Ohio State fans will tell you that's the loudest that they've heard since playing in Beaver Stadium and in Whiteout. So they've been in those environments, but they've never been in an environment as a road dog across the country, in a stadium that holds over 100,000 people.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the difference here. Now, October 4th, I have circled on your schedule, and hear me out. Whether you win or lose on the 27th, you got to go across the country, and you've got to fight against there being a hangover of some kind. And UCLA is a much more improved football team. Are they going to be competing for a college football playoff? No one is saying that. But they are a 500 football team competing for a bowl game with an electric quarterback in Nico, who we saw in person at Ohio Stadium a year ago. And although Ohio State dog walked the Volunteers, I'm here to tell you it was not because of Nico. That guy gave every ounce of what he had in that game. He is a good quarterback. I give UCLA a puncher's chance here in this game if Penn State comes across the country and there's a hangover of some kind from the previous week.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I have this one and another one marked as like the two biggest trap game opportunities, if you will, on Penn State's schedule for all the reasons that you just mentioned. Cross country road trip. They're probably going to be coming off of a tough game, win or lose against Oregon. So they're going to have to navigate some things, physically and also emotionally in this one. And if Nico is going to be making good on his promises to play with what I don't even know what the soundbite was, like top tier talent at UCLA. Regardless, if he balls out, UCLA is a different team, like you said. And yeah, I mean, it can be scary.
October 11th, come back home to get Northwestern. That should be a win. No one is. However, Northwestern has this weird every other year thing going on when you don't expect them to be good and all of a sudden they have a really good year. That would be this year if that remains to be true, if that trend happens. We'll see. I don't think it's going to happen. October 18th, again, another tough road game. On the road at Kinnick Stadium, the Iowa Hawkeyes. That's a tough place to play, man. There's been a lot of really good Big Ten teams go into Kinnick and come away with an L, and you're just like, how did that happen? You got the wave between the first and second quarter, and I have always said Kinnick Stadium at night is just a different animal. Not sure when Kick's going to be here. Again, if this is the marquee game of the week and Fox gets it, that'll be a noon kick. But we'll see what happens there. Your thoughts on going to Iowa? Is this the other one you had circled as a possible trap game?
Yep, this is the second one for the reasons that you said. I mean, both of our teams have experienced the sting of Kinnick Stadium in at different points, over the last decade or so. But yeah, I mean, Kinnick Stadium's a different beast, like you said. They've just got some black magic that goes through that place. So even though I think Penn State will have the talent and coaching advantage on paper, you never know.
November 1st, after a bye, the second bye of the year to wrap up the month of October, you travel to the Shoe. This is the big monkey game for James Franklin.
Yep. Yeah, Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. No, I want to hear what you have to say first. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be completely candid. Like, I don't feel good about this one going into the season. Just because I know similar to Oregon. I mean, Ohio State lost a ton of talent, but they're still Ohio State. They're going to reload. They've got some dudes in there. I mean, in the best player in college football, in Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs is back there. On defense, Julian Sayin coming in at quarterback. I mean, like, what more could you ask for? And so I still really like Ohio State going into this. Playing at Ohio State is like James Franklin's kryptonite. So I'm not really feeling too good about this one. I think it'll be a close game. Am hoping that there's a better showing than what there was a couple of years ago. When Drew Aller played them for the first time in the shoe, where it was, I think, just like the one turned back pick six or whatever the case was. It just felt like such a dud of a game from Penn State, and so I'm hoping for something different. But yeah, I mean, if I had to put money on it right now, I'm saying Ohio State comes out of that with the win.
November 8th, you come back home and you host the Fighting Sigs. Indiana. The funny little stat about Indiana. Indiana played one team. Indiana beat one team last year who had a winning record during the regular season. That was Michigan at home, 20-15. Every other team they played that had a winning record in the regular season, they lost to, which means they played a cupcake of a schedule last season. This will not be a cupcake game for Indiana, nor do they have a cupcake schedule this year. I think Penn State handles this football game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would put it more in trap game status if it was at Indiana, but Penn State usually handles business at home, so I'll say Penn State is my pick here.
November 15th at Spartan Stadium at Michigan State. I think this is a win.
Agreed.
November 22nd versus Nebraska. Now, if this game was in Lincoln, I would say, woo, wait a second here. But it's not. It's at home. And this might be a game against two of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten going into the season. And Nebraska they're on that trajectory that Matt Rule has been on every time he's made a stop. Year 3, and at the program he got a head job at, he always turns a corner. First year is really bad. Second year, he breaks even. Third year, it's a really good year. Happened at UMass, happened at Baylor, and it looks like Nebraska might be the next place where that happens. Now, do I think he is going to set the world on fire and win the Big Ten this year? I do not, but this is not a gimme game. This is a game where Penn State's going to have their chin straps tightened, and if they don't come out and play their A game, Nebraska's going to be in this football game at the end.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, I think that Dylan Raiola, I still think has a lot more in him than what we've seen so far. So just a couple, with the points that you made, I think this will be, a charged football game. Similar to what I said about Indiana, though, like Penn State at home, like they're pretty good about taking care of their business. So I still like Penn State a little comfortably in this one, but yeah, I mean, what you said there, I think is very interesting. Not something that I had really considered about, Matt Rule's time at Nebraska so far.
Yeah, he's trending in the right direction again. November 29th, they finish off on the road in Piscataway, New Jersey, in what will be a win against Rutgers. I'm pretty confident in that. So, looking at these 12 games, Andrew, I want you to give me the best case scenario. What is the top ceiling for Penn State in 2025? And oh my gosh, this was a disaster of a season, basement floor.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go with the ceiling. Ceiling is 12-0. You've got arguably the best coaching staff that money can buy. There's still plenty of returning talent on here. Some guys who have just been waiting their opportunity to shine. So even though they don't have Tyler Warren, they don't have Abdul Carter anymore, there are guys on this squad who are going to make a name for themselves. And so 12-0 is the ceiling. And then, in my opinion, I mean, I've kind of been going back and forth. I would say the floor is somewhere between 8-4 and 9-3. I would say that if they lose both of those games against Oregon and Ohio State, it wouldn't shock me if they have a hangover and they lose another one of those games, like at UCLA, like you mentioned before, and then possibly another one in there as well. If certain things kind of go sideways, we have some health issues and things kind of start to snowball. That's kind of where my mind is at. But for the most part, I think Penn State should be at least getting 10 wins here.
Yeah, and 10-2 gets you to college football playoff.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, so I don't see any reason why Penn State won't be going back again this year. I know a lot of people that I have spoke to when breaking down schedules and rankings and things have Penn State somewhere around 11-1. They have them either dropping the Oregon or Ohio State game and finishing 11-1 and going back to Indianapolis again. So, which I'm not so sure, Andrew. 10-2 and not having to worry about the Big Ten championship game isn't better than going back to Indy, losing, and still not getting that bye.
I don't know. I mean, last year, I mean, it was like the major epidemic of teams that didn't play, then went in and won all the games and stuff like that in the first round. So I don't know. Maybe there's a case to be made here. I would say, in the spirit of like the competitiveness, like no fan is going to say, oh man, like it sucks that we're playing in the conference championship game. Like, there's still a lot of love like for the Big Ten title among the Penn State fan base, since 2016 was the last time that they won it. So if they're able to get to that point and win it, then, that will definitely be a feather in the cap in the minds of fans for this season. So I'm not gonna, and maybe if they get crushed in like the ensuing playoff game, feelings will change. But I'm gonna go with like kind of more the former as of right now.
Okay, I got one final question for you. This is a fun one. The Big Ten headquarters call me and they say, "Hey, you're going to become the new Big Ten commissioner," and I accept the position, obviously. And I call up Andrew and I say, "Look, I'm looking at bringing 2 new teams to the Big Ten, and I want to bring in who you want as Penn State because, Penn State kind of came in, by themselves all those years ago. They were team number 11 a long, long time ago." Back when I was in high school, Andrew, and you probably, I don't know, you might not even been born yet back in the
I was a few years old, but yeah, wasn't very old.
and then of course Nebraska became the same thing, but Penn State and Nebraska never were rivals. It doesn't make sense. Nebraska's got Iowa, that's perfect. Who do you want who do you want me to make phone calls to as Big Ten commissioner? Because Penn State, you get 2 schools. Who do you want?
I want Notre Dame for one.
Ooh.
Penn State, even though it's been a while, Penn State played Notre Dame a lot in like the mid like 2000s and stuff like that. There's no love lost between these two fan bases. I'll tell you that much. Like with the rhetoric of leading up to the semifinal game last year. And I mean, like I even like I know classmates that I had who were Notre Dame fans. I had teachers who were Notre Dame fans. So
really? In the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes. Yeah.
So is there a really well? Obviously, I know Philadelphia's got a really big Catholic contingent. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a healthy Notre Dame fan base in Pennsylvania. My own uncle is a Notre Dame fan.
Okay, so Notre Dame's number 1. That makes sense. I get it. And I think a lot of Big Ten schools would say the same thing. Yes, let's get the big Midwest, behemoth, in here as well. All right, who's the second phone call going to be made to?
Man, that's a tough one. There's a couple schools in mind. I think the one that I would lean towards maybe the most is like a Virginia Tech. Maybe expand a little bit into Virginia a little bit. Kind of get into like those mid states on the East Coast. I think you can make a call to Pitt. Get Penn State. Pitt
I wondered if you were gonna go to Pitt. Okay, yep. I wondered.
Yep, I'm in favor of the rivalry game. I love it. I mean, like similar to Notre Dame, like anytime that game gets put on the calendar, like it is just like the crank is like turned to 12. Like it's insane. So I would go in that direction as well. Trying to think if there's like any more out there. Maybe like an Iowa State or a West Virginia. I would say those would kind of round out my choices.
Well, if you were to bring in West Virginia and not Pitt, I would be
there you go. Yeah, that's a good point.
That would be the most Big
That would
Ten-ish
be
thing ever to be like,
yeah. Leave them out.
the Big Ten's like, we can't bring in Pitt. Sorry, it'd be like bringing in Cincinnati. Ohio State would never let it happen.
Yeah,
So it'd be like Penn State's like, yeah, no, we don't want Pitt here, but we'll take West Virginia. We'll take their rival. Yeah.
that'd be hilarious. Yeah, that would be an incredible like kind of like trio of teams to all be in the same conference between Penn State, Pitt, and West Virginia, because back in like, the 80s, like Penn State, Pitt is like, the main thing because of in-state, but like Penn State, West Virginia was a huge thing as well. And then obviously Pitt and West Virginia. So like between the three of them, they just kind of like overlap in like, so many different years and situations and teams, etc. So that would be fun. But yeah, Notre Dame is still my number one pick.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, man. Andrew, this has been fantastic interview as always, dude. You guys over there at the Nittany Blues are just fantastic, man. You guys are so easy to work with and know your ball, and I'm so glad that you guys are with us at the College Huddle. Tell everybody where they can find you, man. And by the way, your website's fantastic too.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's a fantastic group of people that we have the privilege to work with in the College Huddle, so we definitely do not take it for granted. But people out there can find the Nittany Blues podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever they listen to podcasts from. As you said, Eric, we have our own website, nittnyblues.com, so you can listen to all of our previous episodes there. And then if you want to follow us on social media, we're on all forums at Nittany Blues or Nittany Blues Podcast.
Yep. And if all else fails, go over to the College Huddle. Head on to thecollegehuddle.com, thecollegehuddle.com. Scroll over to Big Ten, down to Penn State. There you'll find the Nittany Blues with all links to everything Andrew just said. Andrew, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. Again, and in about 2 months we'll be doing 3 months we'll be doing this again with the big preview between Ohio State and Penn State in the shoe, man. So make sure you all will come back and check out that preview because I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about then. Thank you for your time, Andrew.
Thank you, Eric. A pleasure as always.
And I won't do your chant, but
No worries. I understand.
I also won't make you answer my OH. So it's have a good one, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Eric.
And thank you to Andrew from the Nittany Blues podcast, my man. It was awesome catching up with him again. He is fantastic, and really looking forward to collaborating with him later in the season, the last week of October, when we welcome the Nittany Lions to Columbus, Ohio once again. It is one of the better rivalries in the Big Ten. It's sad that it won't be played every single year. To me, last Saturday in October under the lights is where that game should be played every single year.
But I understand why Penn State did not want this as a protected rivalry.
They did want this as a protected rivalry. It was Gene Smith that didn't.
Did they though? Really? I mean,
yes, they did.
After
They
being
wanted this
handed
one.
to them since they've joined the Big Ten for the most
Hey
part.
man, take your shot every year. I mean, it's part of. I mean, you're a Browns fan. You know what that's like.
I'm not a Browns fan anymore, Eric. I told you.
Just another dig, my man. Just another dig. All right. Great interview. Let's dive into, Chris, our predictions now for Penn State. Now, I will say this. There is a correction that will be made on this. So don't overreact when you see the graphic. Chris will explain what happened, but here is our predictions for Penn State in 2025. Now, the over-under for Penn State is 10.5 wins this season, according to Vegas, as the last I looked. I have seen them up as high as 11 at one place, but the consensus among most of the houses there in Vegas is 10.5. Nevada, Florida International, Villanova, that is weak sauce, non-con. Those are 3 wins. Penn State, go play somebody. That's ridiculous.
And they do.
And you get a bye. Then you host Oregon in the whiteout. Here is where, Chris, win or loss, what you got?
This is where our mistake came in. I had predicted this as a win for Penn State. I sent it over to you as a loss when you were putting together the graphics. I do have Penn State winning this game.
Okay, I do as well. October 4th at UCLA. This will not be an easy game for them. This is a game where if you don't have your A game, off a big Oregon game. This could be a total letdown. This is a trap game, if there ever was one, flying across country a week later to take on UCLA, a UCLA team that is going to be improved, that's going to have Nico running the show over there. Last time when Penn State went across the country, they barely beat USC and what was a mediocre USC football team. I have Penn State winning this game, but they need to be careful here.
Yeah, I agree, but I think I've got Penn State winning this. I've got Penn State winning this as well. Yes.
Northwestern, that's a win at Iowa on October 18th. Iowa fans think they can get them here. They think they've got a puncher's chance.
So do I, Eric. Kinnick is such a tough place to play. Ohio State's fell victim to it, and I do think that Penn State falls victim to it this year.
Ooh.
This is where I have their first loss.
All right, I have Penn State winning that game. You do not. That's one of the big differences here. Then they get their second bye before traveling into Columbus, Ohio. If Ohio State loses to Texas at the beginning of the season, which I predict, and or Illinois, which is another game I predict them losing to, this becomes a must-win for Ohio State. I think Ohio State will be dangerous in this game because of that. I think the Buckeyes win.
Yeah, I've got the Buckeyes winning this one. Penn State does not have the best record over the last 11 years versus Ohio State, with James Franklin, I believe, 1-10 versus Ohio State in that time frame. Ohio State's still a very talented team. Yes, they've lost some key pieces. Very, very talented team. I think that Ohio State wins this at home.
Versus Indiana, this is when Cignetti, I think, gets a good beat down here. I got Penn State winning this one.
I do as well, Eric.
At Michigan State, that should be a win. Versus Nebraska, if that was in Lincoln, I would have more
hesitation,
but I do not. I think this is a win.
I agree 100%.
And I think they beat Rutgers to finish off the season.
I do as well.
I've got Penn State 11-1, 8-1 in the Big Ten. Chris, you got them 10-2, 7-2 in the Big Ten. So that is our predictions for the Nittany Lions this season. If you're paying attention, and I know you have, we haven't quite got to Ohio State yet, but I have 2 8-1 teams in the Big Ten currently. One is Oregon, one is Penn State. Penn State owns the head-to-head over Oregon.
Ohio State would have the head-to-head over Penn State.
Oregon actually has what's going to have, I think, considered a tougher non-con schedule than Penn State.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, they actually played
Oregon State. They actually played Oregon State.
And they also have Oklahoma State, which is a Power 4 team.
Yes. So, there's going to be some scenarios that happen in my prediction. And even though Penn State is 11-1, 8-1, I actually have them on the outside looking in at the Big Ten championship game.
And I agree with that, Eric. But good news, Nittany Lion fans, you will get a second shot at this thing as far as the national title goes, because I think that you are one of the 4 teams the Big Ten sends.
I agree 100% with that. All right, that is our prediction. That is our thoughts. Again, thank you, Andrew, for coming on. If you haven't already, coming on the podcast, if you haven't already, please smash that like button. Let us know what you think about what we think down in the comments section below. Penn State fans, I know you will. That is one thing you are very good at doing, is letting us know what you think of us down in the comments section below. And of course, those of you who would like, please consider subscribing to the channel. Even if you are a Penn State fan, we would really appreciate if you think enough of what we've tried to do here in our preview to earn your sub. So please consider doing that if you haven't already. Chris, we are officially 16 down. 2 to go. It's the big 2. Some might say the only 2 that matter. It's the 2 that we love to talk about and hate to talk about. It's the team up north. It's Ohio State. That's what's left.
And I'll tell you, Eric, I am glad, because that means that we are so close to kicking it off.
Yep.
And all the talking, it's over, man. It's time for action.
Exactly. Games aren't won and lost on paper. They're won and lost between the hedges, out on the field, between the lines. And so that's what matters. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think James Franklin in this season is one of the most fascinating stories in college football, because if he underachieves, this fan base might go ballistic.
And by all rights, Eric, they should.
I agree.
With the talent and the roster he has, no excuses.
Let us know. We want to hear from you down in the comment section below. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen High with all your heart. You all know what to do. OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks.